you're always welcome to always give us your opinion as well. But yes, as you've seen there, we've got some gentlemen joining us this morning to shed light and at least break it down for us, the legal provisions where it applies. First, we've got Dr. Tunji Abayomi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, joining us here. Good morning. Good to see you again, sir.
It's nice to meet you.
And then we have, he joins us again this morning, Mr. Ibrahim Adegorowa, also a Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Apologies, but Mr. Kutapa will be, Mr. Kutapa will be joining us much later, so we'll hang on for that. But let's start with you, Dr. Abayomi. All of this talk, so much just making the rounds, and sometimes you just ask yourself, lawyers, they're always on different pages on what really the provisions of the law is about some of these matters, but I'm sure certain things are just going through your mind about what you heard about the state of the country, open grazing and restructuring. What are you thinking at the moment?
Well, I think really the preoccupation should not be to restate continually the problem of Nigeria. They are quite vast, deep, and require intensity of mind to consider and figure out solution for the, I would say, agitating and disturbing problems of the nation. I think the problem of Nigeria goes beyond the present, because the major question is, why are we where we are at this point in human evolutionary progression, considering the endowment of God on this nation, not only with regard to the human capacity, which is again and again demonstrated, especially when our people leave our shores to interact with the world. My thinking is that we should move a little bit away from stating the problem again and again and again. That's what people are doing right now, to actually concentrate on finding solution. And I have said it again and again here at channels, that the principal problem we have is that the nation has no structure. People talk of restructuring Nigeria, but you cannot restructure a nation that has no structure.
What do you mean we have no structure?
Now let me explain to you. The structure of all nations, I repeat, is its constitution. That's the structure, that's the foundation. It's like the foundation of a house. How do you build a house without a foundation? How do you establish a nation? That's why a constitution is presumed to establish a nation. Okay? So, like I have said, it is never, never, never a government that gives a nation a constitution. It's a constitution that gives a nation a government. And normally a constitution emerges through a negotiation. I give a very good example. You look at it from, for example, a cocoa farm inherited by 5 children. Look at it, Nigeria as an inheritance, like that cocoa farm. One is a journalist like you, one is a lawyer, another one is a physician. We have 2 sisters. One is a nurse and one is a teacher. And one of them, who happens to be a soldier, took a gun and forced all of us to run that cocoa farm in a particular way. Well, because we are afraid of our lives, we surrendered to his will. But when we returned him to common sense, and now we're able to take away the violence, the gun, the most sensible thing is that we should sit around the table and agree, if we want peace, order, and good government, and agree on how that cocoa farm, that common inheritance, is to be managed. This has never happened in the history of Nigeria. When we first had a constitution, we were invited to Lancaster by the colonialists, and they gave us a constitution basically in their interest. Again, we survived that. Then the military came. In the case of the military, it's the greatest nightmare for this nation. Apart from the fact that it did everything that was terrible for this nation. It now forced a constitution or not. But you can understand the tragedy. First and foremost, by its own law, it gave itself the power to make law, not the power to make a constitution. And I have said on this channel before you that a constitution is not law. If you read my book, Constitutional Powers and Duties of the President, I gave 10 reasons that differentiate a constitution from law. For example, a constitution deals with everything. A law deals with only one single thing. A constitution is an agreement by the people on creating a government over themselves, to which they surrender their power. A law, on the other hand, is just made by the legislative house. Now, the military realized that it didn't have the power. But, mind you, it realized that constitution must emerge from the people. That's why it said, we the people. In its own constitution, of course, it lied. But in that lie, it realized that a constitution must emerge from the people. If you look at section 14 of that constitution, it repeats again that sovereignty must come from the people. So it recognized it. But when it realized that it didn't have the power to give us a constitution, which should have been negotiated by the peoples of Nigeria, it just forced it on. It calls it Decree 14 of 1999. So Nigeria is the only country in the whole world, in the history of the world, that is governed by decree, forced law. So
what do you make of Justice Nikki Toby's committee when they said, well, having been put together by the head of state at the time, Abdul Salami, saying this is what Nigerians wanted? They preferred elements of, I think, largely 1979, and then say, look, this 1999, this is what Nigerians say they want.
So the was set up by military government. It returned to the military government that cut it, cut and paste, did whatever it said. If you look at it, it now said that now, therefore, this is the constitution, shall be the constitution for the Federal Republic, for the peoples of Nigeria. It's just a declaration. You don't declare a constitution on a people. A people agree, like that cocoa farm, on how they want to be governed. If you look at the preamble, I do not know if this is something I can look at, sure, because I don't know. If you look at the preamble to the constitution, it's embarrassing, really, really embarrassing. It says, that's the first thing that our people should have attended to when they came into power. It says, whereas federal government of Federal Republic in compliance with transition rule, whereas federal government furtherance of its commitment to commitment to hand over democratically elected administration on 29th May 1999. Mind you, 29th May 1999, that is after government had been set up. So all the governments, whether you are talking of the presidency, the National Assembly, they were already concluded before the military imposed the constitution. Whereas the constitutional debate coordinating committee benefited from and so on, and whereas the constitutional debate, whereas the provisional ruling council has approved the report, subject to the amendments as are deemed necessary. So the report was amended by them, and whereas it is necessary in accordance with the program on transition of civil Republic of Nigeria, after necessary amendments and approval by the provisional ruling council, to be promulgated, in other words, to be made, to be decreed into a new constitution for the federal. Now, therefore, the federal government of Nigeria hereby enacts, there shall be for Nigeria a constitution which shall be set out in the schedule to this. This is how the military gave us a constitution. It just decreed it over us. All over the world, all over in the history of constitutionalism, you sit and just look at it from that cocoa farm. You sit down and agree. That is why a constitution is never a law. It is an agreement over the people. Now look at the situation of Nigeria. Nigeria is a unique nation in the sense that the different peoples are divinely located in different zones. You look at the Yorubas, permanently divinely located in southwest. Igbos, permanently divinely located in southeast. Ijos in the south-south. Tif in the middle belt. Kanuri in the northeast, as Fulani in the northwest. Now, like different children of that family in that cocoa farm, you now want to form a nation. You now want to manage this common inheritance. The most sensible thing is that those peoples should now sit down. How do you want to manage this common inheritance for the well-being, peace, order, good government, and happiness of all of us? They refuse to do that. Unfortunately, these leaders that were elected after the military, that's the first thing they should have done. They failed to do it, and that is where we are today.
All right. Mr. Deborowa, to what extent would you consider this the foundation of our problem, if at all you do?
Thank you very much. I believe that we have all agreed that the incursion of the military into our political history is an aberration. But this has gone on for several decades. And I think, we have done enough of that analysis. It's for us to diagnose what should be the progress, that will enable us get to the promised land. I agree with Dr. Tunji Abayomi, no doubt, that what is called the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it's a product of military imposition. But the politicians and the military worked together at the time. And it's been since 1999 when this document was forced on us. And the politicians have discovered that it's running to their own benefit. And that's why they are unwilling to let go. As a matter of fact, the challenge is that it's a division between the politicians in uniform and the politicians in the normal agbadas. It's a war against the people of Nigeria. It's not just a matter of military imposition. The ruling class is not interested in allowing the people to have a say in how they are governed, be it the military, be it the civilians. Otherwise, since 1999, when we started this democratic experience, we've had enough time to be able to agree on how we should govern ourselves as a people. And you saw in the last Senate, as much as we commended that Senate and Federal House of Reps for being independent, when it came to amending the Constitution, they threw away all the things that had to do with devolution of powers. They shut down the issue of state police. They shut down the issue of local government autonomy. They shut down the issue of devolution of powers from the exclusive legislative list. And that's why we are where we are up to today, such that the resources that are available for our people cannot be managed for our own common prosperity. Otherwise, look at it, Chebali. Why should Nigeria have a growing population of youths that are unemployed when from power generation alone, we have sufficient resources to galvanize our economy? Look at what industrial revolution and technology will do to the Southeast. But the federal government is sitting upon telecommunications so that to even establish a television station, you are controlled from Abuja. Look at what university education could do for our people. But the federal government is centrally regulating education to the extent that even if you set up a private university, you are controlled by the federal government. So how do we live in a nation like that when the people themselves are not allowed to develop themselves? Look at what agriculture can do in the north. Look at what gold can do in Zamfara, in Osun State. Look at what oil can do in the Niger Delta. So I agree with Dr. Abayomi, no doubt, that the Constitution is a problem, but we have had the opportunity, having chased the military away, to be able to take our destiny into our hands. And that's why we should not mislead ourselves. That there's a difference between those who are ruling us now and the military that force themselves on us. It's a matter of personal interest for our leaders who are not interested in galvanizing the economic prosperity of Nigeria for the betterment of the people. And that's why we keep calling for a national conference. And I'm glad that the governors have now agreed with us, especially the governors of the southern states, by calling on the president to address the nation, to convoke a dialogue whereby people can agree, according to what Dr. Abayomi said, on how to engage and agree on how to move forward. And I'm surprised that over a week after 17 governors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria made a declaration in Asaba, the president had ignored them. The president has nothing to say. The president does not even deem it fit to address the issues raised by the governors on behalf of their own people. And that's why you see what is going on at the National Assembly as just like a comedy. For the Senate president to give the impression that he wants to amend a constitution, when in his own personal opinion, he has shut down the issue of restructuring. For the Speaker of the House of Representatives to be pretending to want to amend a constitution, when he said that the people who are elected should not voice the opinion of those who elected them. We can't keep deceiving ourselves. It's important that we should allow Nigerians to take the destiny of this country in our own hands. And the first starting point is to have a discussion together so that we can agree on how we want to rule ourselves, starting with the Constitution.
The challenge hasn't always been whether or not the dialogue is necessary. Perhaps one of the challenges that's been frontal is how. We've had that conversation in 2005. We had that conversation in 2014, and they are just conversations with the communique, so to speak, because I mean, there isn't a draft constitution that came from that, just a report, you know. So, and from 1999 to date, we have been having national assemblies, we've been having state houses of assembly. Perhaps there is something else that ought to come before that, you know, conversation. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Good question.
Because there was once we had this conversation with Professor Akinoyebode, and one of the questions that was put to him at that time led him to saying something like, we don't have a national ethos. And that conversation has reverberated over time within the past 1 or 2 weeks.
We have had a lot of conversations. You will see that every succeeding government, from Obasanjo, Jonathan, all of them, have been dealing with this issue. It looks like an impossible issue. They tried it. We have had enough conversation. What we need is action. And the question is, who can bring about the action? I've explained this again and again. If we look at Britain as an example, Britain has no written constitution, but its government is legitimate. Why is the government of Britain legitimate? Because it is legitimized by the electors, because they delegated their power by that election to the people. So a government can be legitimate as long as the people voluntarily delegate their power. In the case of the National Assembly is just the one that can do it. Because the first National Assembly that came into being in 1999, that was before the Constitution came into being, had its powers delegated to it by the people. Because it's exercising delegated power of the people, it can pass a law to enable the people of Nigeria to give to themselves, to enable the peoples of Nigeria to give to themselves a constitution. That will be a constitution of the people, by the people, and for the people. That National Assembly will now set the perimeters, the terms, and so. For example, you could say, from every word, X number will come up from every. They debate it, discuss it, exercising delegated power of the people given to them. And then they bring about that. Now, you look at two countries as an example. You look at America. America began with Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. And then it realized that this Article of Confederation and Perpetual Union was bringing about an imperfect society. Same people, same religion, same origin, same language, everything same. And yet, the Article for Confederacy is scattering everything. So Hamilton, I think it's 1870 something, then said, look, we cannot continue in this disorder. Why don't we come together to find a solution? They were initially thinking of what can we do. And it occurred to them, since we are the same people, why don't we have a federal arrangement where we have a central government and allow a lot of powers to the states?
Perhaps that's the first challenge there.
Yes.
Has there been that an understanding, not even an agreement now, has there been an understanding that we are one people? Because you've talked about, the
No,
various...
we are not one people. That's the issue. In America is one people. Same language, same origin, same everything, same religion, everything. We are not one people, so we cannot form. So if we are not one people, then we should not look at what arrangement. If America is looking at some kind of united government, maybe we should look at divided government of some sort.
Like confederations?
Some kind of confederate or a federal arrangement that allows a lot of freedom. We could look at confederacy. America started with confederal union. Now look at Chile. Recently, Chile decided to have a constitution of the people. This constitution was brought back, I think it's 1973, by Pinochet, General Pinochet, imposed on it. Chile is the most successful economic power in South America. He said, no, we need a people's constitution, agreed, because that constitution created a gap between the rich and the poor. And this is what my brother is talking about. The people themselves said, look, we need to have more stake in our own affairs. Chile voted for a people's constitution just last year. I think last year, before last year, within the last 2 years. So, in the case of Nigeria, what the leaders, the political National Assembly, exercising the delegated power of the people, should have come, prepare, bring a law to enable to, and the people would now decide the type of constitution. Look, the Yoruba man, the Igbo man, the Kanuri, the Ijo, so they will all come to the table. This is how we want to be governed. This is what we want, and so on and so forth.
But will we ever? Let me put this to Mr. Adigwe.
Well, maybe you put it in when we come back from this break. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Yes.
Well, thanks for staying with us, Mr. Adigwe. We have always been this way in the country more than 100 years now. If we are going to go by the analogy of Dr. Abayomi that you also agreed with the other time, those ones, the farmer, the nurse, the rest of them, they're from one parent. But from some of the things that he has also talked about here, looking at the different divides, especially the 6 geopolitical regions of the country, I don't know if we can say the same way. Perhaps the challenge also here is in the approach. We've talked about how we've not been able to agree on the mode of going about this conversation. As he also said, we've had conversations. So what then are we missing that would need to address so we can make significant progress?
Thank you very much, Ayo. This matter came for discussion and resolution when we were about to achieve our desire for independence. The minority in Nigeria expressed their fears about the capacity of the majority ethnic groups, especially Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba, to consume them. And they will continue to rule over them through population, and they will keep winning elections. And that will be to the detriment of the minority groups. That was what led to the Henry-Willing Commission, which sat down for so many years and months and came up with a report. And the major thing they said was this: if you are going to give independence, and most of the colonial powers, governors, judges were going to withdraw from their various positions, you must have institutions that can guarantee the rights of the people, so that even if you are not able to win election, even if you are not in power, there must be some kind of mechanism that will guarantee that even the smallest person has the capacity for growth, has the capacity to be protected by the union. And that led to the issue of making the Electoral Commission independent, so that the process of electing people will have some kind of input from the people themselves. That was why it became important to have a judicial system that is strong enough to be able to checkmate the excesses of the majority who will be elected into power, called the executive. And that's what led to the strengthening of those institutions at the time independence was to be granted to Nigeria. But immediately our people got into power, the agitation that are there, especially the majority ethnic groups, have continued to force their will upon the rest of the people. And this is what is leading everybody who wants their own representative to be in power. Otherwise, it will not make any difference if an Hausa man should rule maybe for 20 years. If he's able to follow the rules, if he's able to protect everybody, what do I care? If a Muslim is ruling Nigeria, if a Christian is ruling Nigeria, if he has the capacity to become unbiased, if he has the capacity to extend his focus to cover everybody. But because we do not follow that pattern, and everybody has seen himself as a representative, first of all, of his own tribe, of his own religion, it then has become an agitation for everybody to want to get to power as a means of protecting their own people. And I think that is what is wrong. That's why, for instance, we cannot trust the present legislators to amend the constitution, because they are benefiting from it. Because they will look for a way to retain themselves to ensure that they perpetuate the system of continually taking from the federal purse without justification. This is why it is important, for instance, that, like Dr. Abayomi has said, we must now agree to come together. Get all the representatives, journalists, students, army, politicians. We have the mandate of the people through a regulated legislation that gives autonomy and independence to such discussion that will not be subject to approval by the National Assembly, but the referendum of the people of Nigeria. Except we get to a place whereby we have a constitution that is the product of the people themselves, we continue to move around in this Baba's chair as it is. Because before you know it, you were in 2023. And elections will come, the primaries will go on, some godfather will sit somewhere and impose his own a choice on the people, and then the people will go to election, carry that will not work, results will be manipulated, people will go to election tribunals, they will complain that judges are bribed, no governor will be impeached, and we'll continue in that circle. And that's why we think that moving towards 2023, it's important for us to resolve this issue. Otherwise, the agitations will continue. Thank you.
Point. I mean, haven't talked about some of these challenges and solutions as well, because we need to emphasize that. Let me bring in Mr. Jibrin Nokutekwa and on this matter as well. The governors have had several meetings, both the northern and southern governors. But recently, the southern governors did meet. They called for devolution of powers. They want state police. They banned open grazing, several other matters. But speaking about what needs to be done, the steps that we need to take, do the governors actually need the approval, for want of words, of the president for them to begin to take those steps to ensure that something is done about those issues they raised, including the Constitution?
Good morning, Chamberlain, and good morning, Nigeria, and good morning, my brother Ebu. First of all, let me apologize that I am appearing natively because I was hijacked to be here this morning, and I have to join you hurriedly. So otherwise, it's not in my nature and character to not to appear professionally like Deborah and my brother have done. Well, I haven't said that. Let me say that this country, Nigeria, is full of excuses. The people that put themselves forward to lead us, once they find one excuse or the other, they lash on it to produce what I call total failure. Now, this country, again, with respect, seems to be full of deceits. I know that there are constraints that the governor have, but by constitutional arrangement and operation, the governors are chief executive officers of their state. That's why some of them pride themselves around as executive governor of the state. So there is a complete failure on the part of everyone, failure of governance, insecurity everywhere. So when the governor met and they weighed in on a series of issues, including asking for devolution of power, I have no problem because power needs to be devolved. But I ask questions. What have they done with the power that they have? Today, you see that Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria are on strike. Local government system across board, apart from a few states of the Federation, have been politically, economically, socially castrated. They become impotent. They no longer have the power to perform the constitutional role assigned to them in the Constitution. And that is because most, if not all, our chief executives at various levels of governance in the states have so insatiable appetite for power that they exercise what I refer to as appetite power in the respective states. So for me, and I agree with what my brother Igboadegoro and Dr. Bayomi had said, we need to have sovereignty of the people. What we have today in our various states cannot be described as the power that flow from the people to the governors, to the legislators, and what have you. So we still have the semblance of military dictatorship in civilian government. So if they are looking for power, first of all, we ask questions. What have they done with the little power they have to justify asking for more? Because the little power they have, go to some states, pensioners are not paid, workers are being retrenched, some people are, they are lord unto themselves. So for me, I first of all agitate that there should be a restructuring of our character, of our orientation, of our patriotic zeal. Do we even believe in a project called Nigeria? For us, all of us to die for it. How have Nigeria paid us, those of us who are patriotic and nationalistic? Do we get appointment on the basis of what you know or on the basis of who you know? Or do we engage in what I refer to as primordial partisan selfish interest in the gap of executive power in their respective states? So for me, Nigeria problem required a lot of restructuring of our character, restructuring of our mind, then restructuring of our laws. The law that have concentrated too much power in one man, either at the federal level, in the president, or at the state level, in the governor. We need to restructure it and let the allegiance of Nigerian leadership be up to Nigeria as a country. But today, allegiance is not held onto Nigeria. Allegiance is held to the occupant of office. And so even our military, the allegiance is to the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, not the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And so we need to, where did we copy a lot of this totally unacceptable behavior from? Is it that it is in our character as African people? I do not think so. Africa are civilized people. So let us go for a civilized way of devolving power to the people. Power to, in the course of our elections, we need to devolve power. People should determine who governs them, not few individual money bags, determine who is to be governor of any of the states, who is to be legislator, who is to be councillor. Because today, unless you have the means of production and you have stolen stupendous wealth, you cannot even aspire to be governor. I'm not too sure, my brother, for instance, and I will be able to become a councillor in our respective places, given the political system we operate now. Because everything is money, money, money. And that trickled down even also to Nigerian people. If you are going for elections, the electorate ask for money before they vote for you. So Nigeria seems, with respect, to have turned to Esau, who have sold their birthright just for a political porridge. And for just temporary moment, integrity you can't find, honesty you can't find, nationalism it seems to be zero, And so the government also doesn't even seem to encourage those who are patriotic and nationalistic. So for me, back to your question, Chamberlain, we need character restructuring. We need total toleration, total respect for law and others.
In addition to that, with respect to what the governors requested, having had that meeting, and now assuming, because there'll be those who agree, and probably not concede that that were the case, that what have they done with the powers they have? Does that then mean that if that were the case, they have no reason whatsoever, they can't justify what they're asking? And wouldn't that be tantamount to saying, well, if the people are agitating for something which they say they are upholding, it wouldn't matter?
No, I'm not saying they are not entitled to, but I am asking, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. You are asking for more power. I'm asking, are they accountable? Have they accounted for the one they have? Yes, I agree they have more power. For instance, why should there be a provision in our constitution that if an order is given to Commissioner of Police, he would then need to seek clearance from somebody somewhere in Abuja outside of the executive, the chief executive of the state. So we should think out with our constitution to say that once a governor gives order to police, Commissioner of Police, or any law enforcement agents, domicile and resident in that state, they must come to his aid. And that again, come to the question I have said. If we have a nationalistic police, we have a nationalistic army, patriotic army, who are not partisan, who have no primordial tribal inclination, and who are interested in defending and protecting the properties of all Nigerians, irrespective of the tribe they come from. They protect the property, and everybody is ready for a peace and security of Nigerian nation. Then there is no need for the governor to run here and there, go cap in hand, begging Commissioner of Police, whose responsibility it is to protect lives and property in that state. But where some Commissioner of Police have become law unto themselves, we have had them in previous republic where they are competing in power because there is one man there giving them direction to sabotage the state. So all of these things boil down to the point I have made, that we need to look at ourselves, directly to ourselves in our faces, and ask questions. Do we really believe that there is an entity called Nigeria?
There are very big questions in this regard, gentlemen. I mean, listening to all of the takes that you all have had on restructuring, very interesting conversation there. But and part of the follow-up conversations that we had off air yesterday, some people did posit that a lot of Nigerians really do not care for a better document if they had a better life. I think Mr. Adegborua said as much as that much in his own submissions. But I'm just curious, and this question is for Mr. Abayomi, SAN. I'm wondering, sir, when do you think that we can get, I mean, first and foremost, are you confident? Because you have said that a constitution is an agreement, and it will seem for you that if we're not able to have that conversation about how we want to be governed, the chances that we will get a better life are very slim. The question now is, how confident are you? And this is, I don't know, this is, just asking hypothetically, because there is no sign anywhere that we're going to have this conversation. But assuming we do finally get to have the conversation, how confident are you that a new document, a new agreement could bring about a better life for Nigerians, considering how we have currently handled what we currently have?
Problem, really. Immediately, first of all, before independence, a whole lot of conversation was going on about what the future of Nigeria We had everything. The question is, how do we galvanize this great possibility to build a nation? That conversation took place, and eventually they agreed on some form of government. The only thing is that it was not done in freedom, in the sense that it was done under the, you might say, colonial authority. Now, how do we get the conversation? There's nothing special about it. America had it. South Africa, immediately after Mandela was released, they had a conversation and agreed upon it. The important thing is that the leaders of Nigeria need to think about Nigeria distancing themselves from ethnicity, religion, and region. In my book, State and Citizens, I spoke of Nigerianity. Let us focus on our Nigerianity. This is a great nation. You will know how great this nation is if we go back. My principal, the principal of my school, my secondary school, is called Goy Gagillo. He's the son of an Italian Air Force general. He was in Cambridge when Igbobi needed mathematics teacher in 1960. This was before independence. And they said in Cambridge that, oh, they needed a mathematics teacher in Igbobi. The guy went to his father. He's an Italian general. I said, oh, I'm interested in adventure. They said they need a mathematics teacher in Nigeria. The man said, oh, that's one of the countries of the great countries of the future. That was how he left Cambridge, got in MSc from Cambridge, the son of an Italian Air Force general, and came to Igbobi. He didn't like the city and now came to Ajwa Grammar School, Okeagbe, in the rural Ondo State. That was Nigeria of the future at that time. Now, this man, this Gagillo, produced 3 of the best students in University of Ife and University of Ibadan around 1973. The overall best student from a rural community in Okeagbe, Dr. Shola Aliu, who got his PhD from Manchester. The best in economics, Dr. Fajano, who ultimately went to the University of Australia. The best in classics, who studied, the only student who studied Greek in West Africa. From a rural Nigeria, I just want you to understand the fecundity of the minds of the people of Nigeria, the capacity that can be produced in this nation. If we are able to think of Nigeria, that guy was thinking of Nigeria. From the rural community, he produced the best and transformed, one single man, transformed the whole community. A few years ago, before he died, I asked him, what was his thinking? He still continued to come to Nigeria. He shook his head. He said the future suddenly disappeared, the future of Nigeria. But we have not lost it. The problem is that we need great leaders who can think of this nation in a different way. We have been preoccupied with ethnicity, religion, and so on and so forth. You can see the discussion presently going on. It's about you are this, you are not, you are this, you are religion, you are this.
Are you then saying, if you can hear me, are you then saying that this is not, it's not about a great document. It's about great people, about great leaders who are thinking about the future of the country.
People make great document. If you study the Federalist Papers, when America was trying to build its constitution, Tocqueville, the great French philosopher, he said 55 of the greatest minds in the world, they wanted to build the greatest nation on earth. That was their preoccupation during the debate for the Federalist Constitution in Philadelphia. Great people create great document. The Constitution is the greatest document to build a nation. That's what it is. America produced the best of their mind to come together to create it. Chile in recent time did it, Nigeria. Now the National Assembly, if it's preoccupied with this nation, and we should encourage it to be preoccupied with this nation, we can still make, if you look at our recent past, you can see the greatness of this nation. Look at the youth, what they have transformed, art, music, all of these things. But to be able to build a house, a beautiful house, you've got to have a beautiful foundation. A beautiful foundation can only be created by a beautiful mind, a great mind. He will understand that you need to put a stone, you need to increase the cement, you need to dig deeper, you need to put iron. Those are products of a greatest mind to create a foundation. This is the problem of this nation. Where are the great minds that will create great foundation to build a great house that is called Nigeria?
But the challenge here, Dr. Abayomi, is...
Very big question. It's a very big question. Now, I'm a little torn between posing this question to Mr. Adegboru, I say, and continue with you, Dr. Abayomi. Because let me go to you, Mr. Adegboru. I'm wondering, because it would seem that we're back to that age-long conversation about great institutions and the great people. I mean, man versus institutions. Which one comes first? In your mind, and from what you have seen of the conversations that we have made, there are still those who say, oh no, the National Assembly is not where we need to go with this conversation. In fact, they do not believe that the conversations we need to have can happen within the National Assembly. Those who argue for a new constitution say this needs to happen outside of the National Assembly. In fact, the National Assembly has said we do not have powers to make a new constitution. What we have powers for is to amend the constitution that we currently have. You've heard Dr. Abayomi say we need to encourage this National Assembly. What are your thoughts on that regard, and whether or not you really agree that what we really need right now, what is missing right now, what is hampering our development is a new constitution?
I have no doubt in my mind that the document called Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 is tying the progress of this nation down. And it's important to tinker with that document in such a way that we will free ourselves to be able to reach the maximum potential that God has endowed this nation with. And that cannot be done by the present National Assembly, because that National Assembly is a product of that faulty document called Constitution. And now we look at the document itself. Those who can go to that National Assembly, illiterates can go there, with all due respect. I'm not saying education is the best way to get results. But when you have a document that says somebody who has CUSAT can become the president, and he doesn't even need to go to any institution to be able to contest election, to be a senator, to be a president, if he can be called an equivalent, if somebody who has equivalent of that, he has worked in a factory, or even if the INEC chairman can give a document to say, I'm satisfied that this man can speak and write in English, that person qualifies to be the president of this nation. That person qualifies to be in the National Assembly. And so when you begin to interrogate the candidates who are being endowed or at least given the responsibility of amending the Constitution, they themselves probably don't have a better understanding of that document and how it should work. With due respect to so many of them who are very outstanding. But when you look at the history of this particular National Assembly, you can at least predict what will come from that institution. Now, talking about great people and great document, I have no doubt in my mind that in all the four walls of this country, whether in the north, in the south, there are people who have the capacity to take this nation to the destination we all desire. But most of these desires cannot be activated because the document we are using to hold the nation together will frustrate that opportunity. Look at INEC, for instance. Perhaps there are people in that institution who have the capacity to manage our electoral process in such a transparent manner. But the Constitution says that one day the president can wake up and remove the chairman of INEC, subject to confirmation by the Senate. And this Senate is a rubber stamp Senate. So the person who occupies the position of INEC then has to be careful how he offends the president, because it depends on whether the president likes him or not. And such a person cannot midwife an election that will produce somebody who probably will meet the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians. So that's why it's important that we must first of all address the foundation. Even if we get the best of people to manage and pilot the affairs of Nigeria, the faulty document will not allow the great people to get to their maximum potentials. And that document cannot be corrected, cannot be amended by people who are beneficiaries of that error, except for probably Malam Shehu Yaradua. You hardly find a leader who has benefited from a faulty system coming to criticize that system. He's the only leader who came out to say the system that produced me is faulty and I don't want to leave it as a legacy. And he set up the Waste panel and they came out with wonderful and fantastic results. But those results are lying somewhere in the cooler, just like in the 2014 conference. So that's why our leaders are the people who are misleading us. They are deceiving us because they are benefiting. The concept of federal government holding resources and distributing to the regions is not acceptable. And that's why we support the governors who said they are asking for devolution of powers. That's why we support the governors who said they ban open grazing. Because you cannot use the right to freedom of movement to be destroying and trespassing on people's property, which they also acquired under the Constitution. You cannot have an elective government who is a governor of a state and the chief executive. He has no say in how power is generated in his state. The people are in darkness. He wants to give them power, and the federal government is holding him down. That is not a nation. And that's why this document is not allowing Nigeria to move forward.
Well, gentlemen, it's a conversation that will keep happening as long as Nigerians want it. I guess we the people have no choice to make that happen. Well, we have to thank all of you gentlemen for coming on this morning. Mr. Ebunlu Adegborowa, Jibrin Okotekwa, both SAN, and Dr. Tunji Abawemi, a very senior lawyer. Thank you for your perspective this morning.